Guns and Tacomas, they go together like peas and carrots. Howdy, y'all, and welcome back. So, what's the deal with showing a Tacoma on a gun channel? Because it's a Tacoma, of course. And if you don't get this association, you haven't been in the gun world very long or been paying much attention. But the Venn diagram of people who love Toyota trucks and people who love guns is at least like a half and half kind of deal. Like it's a thing. It's a thing for those of us like older cats who grew up out in the woods into like the early like pre-Tacoma Toyota, just the pickup known as the Hilux in the rest of the world. But for anybody who has served in any of the sandboxes, lots and lots of veterans come to love those and respect them for their service overseas in war zones as technicals. They're just tough all over South America, Central America, Africa, like anywhere in the world. A Toyota truck is also a military vehicle. So it just makes sense that gun people love Tacomas. Here in America, you could argue that the Jeep is probably maybe the more prominent like gun nerd vehicle. And I get that. But if we're being honest, a Tacoma is much more utilitarian than a Jeep. And what I mean by that is, as a work vehicle, if you're going to run a pool cleaning business or a carpentry business, if you have to load sheets of plywood in the back of your vehicle, a Jeep isn't the best choice. Yes, it can be done, but you get what I'm saying. Jeeps are for fun and adventuring, and they're great. But the Tacoma really is the Glock of vehicles. You have probably heard people compare the Glock to the Honda Civic. It makes sense. Honda Civics are super reliable, and they have a huge aftermarket, and you can customize them and do all kinds of stuff to them. Makes sense. But really, Glock and Tacoma make a lot more sense. Also, tons of aftermarket for Tacomas. But they are utilitarian, and that is the point of a Glock, is that at its core, you could just buy it and leave it alone and never do anything to it and just keep it forever, and it will always serve you well, and that's what a Tacoma will do also. Utilitarian. It's about the purpose and the function, not just aftermarket and the like superfluous things. But anyway, I digress. So the story on this old Tacoma is I sold it to my dad back in 2007 when I was working as a Toyota salesperson. Which, if you're gonna have to sell things for a living, that's not a bad gig. But it didn't last very long. I had that job for about 6 months, I think, maybe even less, and ended up moving back to California to get sober. So during that little window, this truck landed on the lot. It was the only one I had seen during that time of selling Toyotas, and most of the other salesmen had not seen that exact configuration either. It's the 4-cylinder, 2.7 liter, 5-speed, base model, like roll-up windows, the sucky basic radio. It does have air conditioning, but no cruise control, like nothing fancy going on. But it's access cab, extended cab, and a pre-runner. And that exact configuration, in this part of the world at least, is not super common. It seems to be a little more common, like in the Pacific Northwest or like Canada and other places. But down here in Texas, those trucks almost always ended up getting Gulf States Toyota, the importer of this whole region of America, takes most of those and fleets them out to companies like Orkin and other like large corporations and turns them into fleet vehicles. So like the bug spray mobile or whatever. So you just never see them on the lot available to private citizens. So the day it showed up on the lot, I jumped on the phone, called my dad. I was like, the truck I have the perfect truck for you. He raced over, we signed him up. And so that's how he scored that truck. And long story short, my dad can't drive anymore, or can technically, but he doesn't drive anymore. So I have taken over his truck. And last week I sold my old Ford. That's probably a whole other video. But my longtime Facebook friends and personal friends know my story with that Ford. But for like a year, it just sat there and I didn't drive it. And I had to do like a Marie Kondo thing on it and be like, does this bring me joy anymore? And it did not bring me joy anymore. So a guy drove by, saw it, made me an offer, and I was like, it's yours. So took that money and I'm rolling it into the Tacoma, giving it some freshness and some new life to keep it going down the road for many, many years to come, because I have a lot of sentimental attachment to this taco. My dad and I started our saddle business back in 2011. We started that business in that truck, drove it all over Texas and Louisiana, piled on like 100,000 miles in a very short time. And so we just have a lot of history with it, and I plan on keeping it forever and ever. So anyway, lots of words there, and I know that it had very little to do with guns, but if you're into these kind of things, I will be doing some, from time to time, little updates on the taco. So I'm going to give it its own playlist here on the channel. If you're not into it, just don't watch those videos. But if you came here looking for Tacoma content, it'll be very light. So anyway, that's all I got for today. Until next time, be easy, y'all.